Hi, I'm Kit Needham, Associate Director for the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at CMU, and I run the startup incubator called Project Olympus. Since I've been here since 2008, I've worked with hundreds of students and student teams on creating their new ideas. And today I'm going to talk about a topic called creating a successful business team. But first, I want to ask you, is it a good idea to form a team? Sometimes I get asked that question. And I would say generally the answer is yes, do form a team. Because think about it, for starting a business, you have lots and lots of different roles and responsibilities. And if you're starting out, particularly if you're the CEO, there's product development, there's sales, there's market research, operations, there's all this different components to having a successful business. So if you're the only one on the team, you're filling all those roles. It's just too much for one person to do. And there has been research that's shown that the most successful size of teams has 3 people, followed by 2, and then by 4, and then 1 and 5 are somewhat tied. But definitely having teammates to help you makes it work better. Investors prefer teams. One of the reasons is because then the project can move a lot faster. And plus that, if you think about it, you need people with different types of expertise to bring, to share, to making the whole business complete. What we also find is sometimes one of the co-founders who gets a little discouraged down in the dumps, and the other team members can help keep up morale. They're good to bounce ideas off of and keep the momentum going. So always you come up with the question, where do I find them? Well, there's lots of opportunities at CMU. They are everywhere. One of the best things you can do is sign up for the weekly bulletin where we list all of our CIE Connect events, and we call them Connects for a reason. We also have other events such as Launch and Show and Tell. There are other events that other student clubs and organizations hold on campus. You can check the one-eds in the bulletin. We also try to get you off campus and meeting other entrepreneurs in other venues to extend your network. We have a big startup job fair that occurs on the Thursday before Thanksgiving. And the reason why we call these events Connects, we hold over 40 of these a year, is that at every single one of these, we ask these questions. Are you looking for teammates? Are you a team member that's looking to join a team? Do you have any announcements, such as we're going to be launching something? Do you need any help, like an introduction or people to participate in a focus group or market research? And I can show you startups that who have found each other and other team members just by attending these events and popping up at the beginning of every session and announcing their availability or their interest in one or the other. So this is a slide of our last year's startup job fair where we had over 40 startups. And these are project-based. Some are formed companies, some haven't, that are looking for all sorts of talent, people with business background, marketing, engineering, computer science, development, design, everything that you could possibly think of. And again, some of these startups have just had phenomenal success finding people to join the teams, paid, unpaid, on a project basis. Some are interns. It's a variety of different roles that you can fulfill. I would encourage you to look at Tartan Track, although it is officially the career database for big companies looking for students to join them. I tell all my startups to post their openings there, and they have great success in finding, again, paid, unpaid, part-time, full-time, project-based summer interns. So you can see that there are other opportunities that are listed here. But the big thing I need to tell you is network, network, network. If you're saying you can't find anybody, I believe it's because you're either not looking or you're certainly not looking in the right places. There are lots of different places to find teammates. And no matter what you end up doing, ultimately it's not what you know, it's who you know. So build your network here. And you will find, if you become good at this, you will successfully find teammates. So the common questions I get, I'm going to go through about forming teams. So the big one that comes up is, do I need to have somebody sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement? Well, just no. At this stage, it's just usually an idea, and you've got to learn to talk about your idea without disclosing what I call the secret sauce. you're really after that high-level concept that I am creating a platform to educate K through 12 students on how to successfully create chemistry molecules. So that's the basic concept, but you're not giving away exactly how you're going to do it. Ultimately, it's executing on the idea. It's far more important and much harder to do. So let's just say you find somebody who is interested, willing to help. They may be a good fit. They may want to be a co-founder, but you're not really sure how to take it to the next step. What do you look for? So the big advice always is date before you marry. Get to know somebody. Go out for coffee. Find out if you communicate with each other. How do they resonate to your idea? Are you able to discuss things well? I always recommend giving the person a small project to do. See if they execute it. Do they have the skills? Do they still maintain their enthusiasm? Are they meeting their deadlines? Are they communicating if they missed a deadline about why? So just test it out and then see how that works, because the person might sound good at first or they look good on paper, but just like anything else, you need to work with them a bit to find out if it's a good match. I often get the question is, should I use my business idea for a class project? Yes, it can be one of the things that can advance your idea significantly. You're drawing upon all the expertise of your classmates. They have a deadline. They're looking for a good grade. And so usually everybody sort of piles on and really helps in creating it. Sometimes also you're able to find a co-founder or somebody who wants to stick with it at the end of the class. We have had a couple students have used this successfully. Black Locust end up getting their MVP, or minimal viable product, from a class where they exited 3.5 years later, sold out to Home Depot. Jeff Mullen for Dynamics worked every class that he went through in his Tepper MBA in the entrepreneur class. He pitched his idea for the class to work on. He always had 3 to 5 of his fellow teammates helping him out. Within 3 months of graduating, he ended up getting his first round of VC funding. So he was able to move significantly well, and some of the other students have followed on with this model. So let us say you have found 2 other co-founders that want to join. It looks like you get along well, you share the same vision, and that you're all excited about starting the company. How do you decide who gets what percentage? Well, first of all, equity does not have to be equally divided. Sometimes it should be 50-50, or everybody gets a third, but often that's really not the case if you can look at it in a different way. It's okay also if you're the driving founder, this is your idea, that you're going to stick with this no matter what, that you maintain the controlling interest. I know if you start with a classmate or with a friend, that it feels like it's greedy to say, oh no, I'm going to be the majority stakeholder in this. But the reality is sometimes that's the best business decision you can make. But to give you a tool or a platform on how to discuss this, on Project Olympus's website under Entrepreneurial Resources, there's a section about founders' equity and a tool called Founders Pie on that website. And it is a short description of a methodology and a thinking on how to divide up the equity. What I recommend to teams, with the founders, to take this exercise. Each of you go into a different room, you fill it out, you come back, and then you compare notes. And what I have found is that this is some ways the easiest decision you're going to be making. And this is a good way to test how well you discuss your differences, how well you resolve them, whether you're actually seeing things the same way. Teams that have had difficulty getting through just this exercise, ultimately I wonder, or I haven't seen them being successful in coming up, working through some of the much more difficult decisions later. Also, you want to be careful about giving away equity or how it's assigned. It always is issued over time. Let us just say that a co-founder is entitled to 33% equity. They don't get the equity right away. It is usually over 3 or 4 years they get a percentage of it, because you want to make sure that they're going to stick with it. Secondly, be careful about giving away equity to people who are going to be what I call one-timers. The temptation is to give equity if you can't pay somebody. But if somebody's only going to be in the company for a semester, maybe max a year, you don't want to have a lot of equity invested in people who are not going to have a compelling, who are not going to be around to make this business a success. The investors get very suspicious and don't like that, because you're also going to need that equity for the true team members that are going to be on the team helping make this work. So you want to bring on other students just to work on a project basis. In some cases, you want to do it on the interns. What are the different choices to offer them? Do you need them to sign anything? So the first thing I would do with whoever you're bringing on, find out what they're after. In some cases, they might be looking for equity. Other cases, they might want or need cash. But we find that sometimes they're just looking for the experience. They just want to have a reference. Something will go good on their resume. On occasion, depending on the advisor and the curriculum, they can actually do this for a semester and get academic credit. That may be the motive behind it. But start with what they're looking for. And then it could be that they could be a founder, team member, intern, or just they're going to be around for a project. You do need them to get something. There are 3 basic things that's a standard contract. It could be a very short form. First of all, that whatever they create is owned by the company. Even if you go work in a big company, you have to sign something like this anyway. It's just assumed that's what you're being paid for, or that's what your relationship with the company is. Secondly, that they're not going to go and tell other people or other companies what it is you're doing. And lastly, they can't compete with you based upon what they have learned or what they have gathered through working for you. We have a sample agreement that is for what we call student projects. That is kind of standard. But I also want to mention something that if sometimes there could be students who are here on an F1 visa. That is a student visa. They do not have a work permit. So they're not allowed to technically work, or you can't pay them unless their curriculum allows them to do that. Secondly, there has been a lot of investigation by the IRS and Department of Justice about abuse of interns. This started with a lawsuit from Runway a couple of years ago. And so even though people are volunteering for their time, you may have to hire them as an employee. We have a session on this called Third-Party Relations, where we have startup attorneys come and talk about when and when not you need to actually hire them, or when they can be working as an intern. We also have office hours where we bring in startup lawyers that you can sign up for a half hour to discuss your particular situation, and they could advise you about the best course to take. So if you're not a U.S. citizen and or you want to bring one onto your team, can you do this legally? My top advice on this first is go to the Office of International Education. They are the experts on immigration law. They understand everybody's individual visa, their individual situation, as well as their curriculum. All of those factors are important in knowing what a student can or cannot do. So send the F1 student to OIE first. And there are a couple options, but it will again depend on the curriculum and their particular visa and their situation, their country. There's a thing called a curricular practical training that they can sign up while still a student. But all students have the option after they graduate to sign up for OPT, optional practical training, that allows them to stay in the country anywhere from 12 to 24 months that they can then work legally on your startup. We have a session at the end of January every year, and it's called Starting a Business on an F1 Visa. And I recommend that you attend that event because we have an immigration attorney, the Office of International Education, plus a startup lawyer that all will talk about this and answer all those questions. So let's just say you maybe got started, and these are actual situations that came from 2 of my startups. 2 students split the business 50-50. They got their Uncle Joe, who was not a startup attorney. He did family law, and he formed the company, and they had no decision maker, no tiebreaker, and the students kind of fell apart. They had a big fight. Each of them wanted to go on. One wanted to go on more than other. One had the code, the other one had the money. The students started fighting, and then the parents started weighing in, and then the parents end up hiring lawyers. It was really messy. So what were the options, or how could this have been prevented? So first of all, in the beginning, have what I call a strong founders agreement. This starts out with the founders' equity buy about who owns what, but there are also some common agreements, even if you haven't formed the business, about what happens if one of you wants to get out. It's standard documentation. Again, sign up for our office hours with the startup attorneys who can walk you through this. And you should always do this while you're still friends or you're still getting along, before it gets complicated. And I will just say this too. In Harvard Business Review's, the top 10 legal mistakes startups can make, number 8 is hiring an attorney who is not a startup attorney. It is a specialty, and you need to have somebody that really understands how this business works. So what should you discuss with your co-founder? First of all, you should have a common vision. You should share the same values. And that sounds very esoteric. But on the other hand, is one just after making money, which is not a bad thing, but somebody else truly has a social mission in mind too, where you really do want to do good while making money? You need to share this in the same way or really fully understand what each of you are after. How are you going to make decisions? Who decides who decides? What are your particular roles going to be? Is one of you going to be the chief tech person? Is somebody else going to be the CEO? Who's going to do the fundraising? Who's going to do the marketing? Who's going to be responsible for overseeing the operations? So think about all the roles and responsibilities and who's going to take the lead and how you're going to hire people to fill in some of those responsibilities. We already talked about equity and ownership interest, but you also want to talk about what happens if one wants to get out of the business. And then in the end, the overall objectives in terms of the exit. Sometimes you're starting the business because that's what you want to do. You want to run this business. Other people are starting it because in 5 years they want to grow big and then they want to sell it and maybe get a big pile of cash and then start all over again. You should have these conversations early on and have them kind of regularly just to refresh to make sure that you're all on the same page. But regardless, I do recommend that you do form a team and that you spend the time to successfully manage your team, communicate with them, make sure that you're getting the right people on board, hire slowly, fire quickly when it's not working. And if you get the right people, you will have a really successful opportunity to grow a great business.